In the hard country of Texas, some fires weren't meant to warm a body. They were meant to destroy. That night the pen burned. Orange flames clawed the black sky while women screamed through the smoke. One broke free from the inferno. Tall, broad-shouldered, auburn hair whipping wild. Bullets cracked behind her. One tore into her shoulder. She kept running, bare feet bleeding. The brand seared into her thigh, burning hotter than the fire she left behind. She ran from hell itself. Far west in the Sababinas, a solitary man knelt by a silver creek at first light. 6 years he'd lived alone on his mountain. 6 years he'd buried the killer he once was. The birds were wrong that morning. He followed the silence downstream and found her crumpled against fallen cottonwood. Blood-soaked, eyes like a cornered wolf. She looked at him and whispered, voice raw as dry leaves, "Mister, if you got any kindness, just kill me fast." The mountain had kept its peace for 6 long years. Peace like that never lasts.
6 years Wyatt Holloway lived alone on his mountain. 6 years he believed he had buried the man he used to be. The sniper. The killer. The boy who had come home from the war with no skin left on his hands and nothing he could say to anyone about it. 6 years, until one April morning when he found a woman by a creek and saw the word burned into her thigh. The creek ran low that morning. Wyatt knelt at the edge of it, Sabine water sliding over pale limestone like a thin ribbon of silver. The sun barely up, the hill country still cold in the shadows. He filled his canteen. Slow, patient. The way he did everything now, most days, the silence was enough, most. He capped the canteen. Stood. Listened. Something was wrong, he didn't know how he knew. The hill country had its own language and he'd learned it the hard way. Birds going quiet in the wrong direction. A silence that wasn't really silence. This morning, the birds were wrong, then he heard it. Not a hawk, not a rustle. Not anything that lived out here. It was human broken. Low. The sound of someone trying not to scream and failing in pieces. Wyatt's hand went to the rifle on his back. Old habit, old reflex from old wars. His fingers knew the wood before his mind caught up, then he stopped. Because whoever was making that sound was not dangerous, whoever was making that sound was dying. He moved downstream, boots crunching gravel. The way you approach a wounded animal that might still bite, 20 yards, 30, and then he saw her. She was crumpled against the trunk of a fallen cottonwood like something the river had spit out and forgotten. Calico dress torn down one sleeve, mud caked thick along her ribs. Auburn hair tangled with leaves and something darker that Wyatt knew was blood before he was close enough to see it. She was big. That was the first thing that struck him, even bent double. Even crumpled, even halfway in the dirt, she was big. Shoulders broad as a man's. The kind of frame you would see on a blacksmith's daughter who had grown up swinging a hammer. The second thing that struck him was the blood, her right shoulder. Soaked through, bullet wound. Graze, maybe? Hard to tell from here. The third thing that struck him was that her eyes were open, and she was watching him, cold, wild blue. The way a wolf watches you when it has already given up. "Stay back," she whispered. Her voice scraped like dry leaves. "Just stay back." Wyatt lifted his hand, slow, palms open. He had seen that look before, in the war, boys in foxholes who had gone past fear into something quieter and worse. You did not reason with that look. You stood very still and let it decide what to do with you. "I ain't fixing to hurt you," he said. His voice came out lower than he expected. Rougher. He had not used it much lately. "You're bleeding bad." "Let me look," she laughed, not a real laugh. The bitter, broken kind that came up from somewhere deep and dark. "Hurt me," she said, eyes drifting past him. "Seeing something that wasn't there, mister, if you got any kindness in you. Just kill me fast." The words hit him harder than any rifle butt ever had. He held the silence a long time. The wind moved through the cedars. A red-tailed hawk circled overhead. The creek murmured against stone. Somewhere far off. A mourning dove called twice and went quiet. "I ain't killing nobody," he said finally. "You will," she breathed it out. Soon as you see, he took a step closer. Slow, like he was approaching a horse that had been beaten one too many times. He could see the bullet furrow now. Across the meat of her shoulder. Deep enough to bleed steady. Not deep enough to kill if it was treated. I need to clean that. No. Her fingers tightened around the hem of her skirt. Knuckles white. "You touch me," she whispered. "You'll see what they did. And then you'll want to finish it. Try me." She stared at him, long enough for the sun to climb another finger above the hills, then, slow, like it cost her something deep inside. She let her hand fall away from her shoulder. He crouched in front of her, made himself smaller. Made himself something less than a threat, going to use creek water. Cold. Going to sting, she did not answer. He cupped water in his palm and let it run over the wound. She flinched once, hard, whole body locking up, but she did not pull back. The torn fabric of her sleeve shifted as he moved. He started to ease it back down for her sake. That was when her dress slipped on the other side, the hem of her skirt, riding up over her thigh. That was when he saw it. He stopped. Everything in him stopped on the pale skin of her inner thigh, burned deep, burned deliberate. Burned the way a man burns a brand into a steer, a word ports, straight letters, clean letters. Pressed in with iron and held there until the skin gave up and let it stay forever. The war had shown him things. He had seen men blown in half. He had seen boys cry for their mothers in mud-soaked dark with blood. He had buried friends with no faces left, but this was something else. This was a man taking his time. This was a man who had wanted her to remember. The woman saw where his eyes had gone. Her face drained of every color it had left. She yanked the skirt down, covered herself like she could hide it. "Now you know," she whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks with sound. "Now you see what I am." Wyatt sat back on his heels. His voice, when it came, was not the voice he had used a minute ago. "I see what they did to you. That ain't what you are." She closed her eyes. A sound came out of her chest. Not a sob. Something older than a sob. Something that had been waiting a long time for permission. He held the quiet. He did not move. He waited.
After a while, she opened her eyes again. They had a place. Called it the pen. Pen, he repeated. Quiet for women. Women who couldn't pay debts. Women whose men died in the war. Women nobody'd come looking for. She looked at him. The blue of her eyes had gone flat. They marked us. Fed us like animals. Sold us like horses. His jaw worked. He did not trust his voice yet. "How'd you get out?" he asked finally. "Wasn't supposed to." She wet her lips. There was a fire. 2 weeks back. I ran in the smoke. Been running ever since. 2 weeks, mostly nights. Hid in the days. Wasn't fast enough. Her hand drifted toward the bloody shoulder. "One of them caught me yesterday down by the river crossing. I got the knife out of his belt, stuck him. He shot once before he went down, and you walked here, crawled. Some of both. He served 4 years in a war. He did not think he had ever met anyone tougher than the woman in front of him." "What's your name?" She hesitated. He understood why. A name was the last thing she had left that no one had taken. "Reese," she said. Reese Calder. "Wyatt Holloway. Don't be pleased to know me. I am, though." She looked at him sharp. Trying to find the lie in it, she did not find one. He stood up, slow. Joints popping. "There's a cabin. Mine. Up in the Sabines. About 4 miles. You ride?" "I ride. Can you stand?" She tried. She made it halfway up before her leg gave out, and Wyatt caught her under the arm. She was heavy, real weight, not the bird bone weight of a half-starved girl. She steadied herself against him, just for a second. Then she pulled away. Like the touching itself was the wound. "I can walk." "All right." He brought the bay mare around, held the stirrup steady. Reese put her boot in it and pulled herself up with her good arm in one motion, and the mare did not even shift. She had done that before. A lot. He swung up behind her. She held herself stiff, spine straight, every muscle in her back locked tight, like if she let any part of her touch him, she would shatter. He kept the reins loose. Let the mare pick her own path through the deer trails. The cedars closed around them. Halfway home, he felt her shoulders drop, just a little, a 1/4 inch maybe. It was enough. It was something.
The cabin sat low in a clearing ringed by oak and limestone. Smoke curled from the chimney where he had banked the morning fire, small, solid, the walls thick, the door heavy. He had built it himself with a man named Brennan who had died of cholera the second winter. He had not built anything since. He helped her down. She did not argue this time. Inside it was clean and spare. Stone fireplace, rough table, chairs? A single bed in the corner with a wool blanket folded square, a shelf of tin cups. A row of dried herbs hanging from the rafter beam. She stood in the middle of the room. "You live alone?" "For a while now." Why, he did not answer right away. "Took me a while to be fit company. Are you fit company now?" "Don't know, honest. Try to be." She nodded once. He pointed to the bed. "You take that." "I'll sleep by the fire." She looked at the bed, then at him. Like he had spoken in a language she half remembered. "Why, because you're hurt and I ain't. That's not what I'm asking." He waited. "What do you want?" The room got very quiet. The fire popped in the hearth. He set his hat on the table. Took a long breath. "I want to clean that shoulder proper. Feed you something hot. I want you to sleep without a knife in your hand. I want you to be alive in the morning." He paused. "After that I don't know yet." She watched him a long time. "All right." He boiled water. He cleaned the wound the right way this time. Iodine from a brown bottle he had bought in Bandera 2 summers back and never used. Linen strips torn from an old shirt. She gripped the edge of the table while he worked. Knuckles white, made no sound. When he tied off the bandage, her hand was still gripping the table. He did not reach for it. Done, she let go, slow, like she had to remind her fingers how. He fed her, beans, salt pork cornbread. She ate in silence. She ate a lot. She watched the door the whole time. When she was done, she set down the spoon. Thank you, he nodded. Where's your privy? Out back. Paths clear, she stood. Her legs held her this time. She paused at the door. Mr. Holloway, Wyatt. Wyatt, she did not turn around. If this is a trick, if you are taking me somewhere, I will kill you. I want you to know that before I sleep under your roof. Reese, yes, I'd expect nothing less. She was quiet for a second, then she went out.
He sat at the table, listening to the door click shut behind her. His hands were shaking. He had not noticed until now. He looked down at them. Big hands. Steady hands. Hands that had killed men in a war and dressed deer alone on the mountain and not shaken in 6 years. They were shaking. He pressed them flat against the wood. Praker. He saw the letters again. Behind his eyes. The clean, precise burn of them. A man had done that. A man with a name. A man who had heated an iron and pressed it to the leg of a girl who was 19 years old. A man who was, somewhere, right now, still breathing. He went to the chest at the foot of the bed and lifted the lid. Old wool inside. A folded jacket the color of dust. A flag. A bayonet wrapped in oilcloth. 3 letters tied with twine he had never opened, underneath all of it. A revolver, cleaned, oiled, loaded. 6 rounds. He had not held it in 5 years. He held it now. The weight was familiar. He set it on the table. Wind in the cedars. Listened to the woman returning from the privy. Boots steady on the path. She knew how to walk quiet. She had been hunted recently. She came back inside and saw the revolver on the table. Yours? Mine. Why's it out? Because somebody hurt you. And there, still out there. She gave him a long, careful look. That is not your fight. I know. You don't know me. I know. You could turn me out. Tomorrow. Drop me at Bandera. Let it not be your problem. I could. Then why? He thought about a brother at Fredericksburg. He thought about 6 years of not speaking to anyone for weeks at a time. He thought about how that life had been enough, until about 10 o'clock this morning. Maybe I'm tired of being alone. Maybe you are too. She did not answer. She walked over to the bed, lay down on top of the blanket fully clothed, boots on, turned her face toward the wall. After a minute he heard her breathing change. She was asleep. He sat by the fire all night. He did not pick the revolver back up. He did not need to.
The next 3 days passed like 2 wounded animals circling each other. Wyatt kept to his routines, checked snares in the hills, chopped wood, mended leather by the fire. He moved slow and predictable, and he announced himself before he came around corners. Reese stayed near the window, watching the trees. She slept hard the first night and woke up screaming. He was on his feet before he was awake. She was sitting up in the bed, eyes wide, looking at him without seeing him. It's me. It's Wyatt. You're in the cabin. You're safe. She stared, slow. Her eyes came back into focus. Sorry, she breathed. Don't be. I dreamed I was back. I know. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Go back to sleep. I won't do it again. She did. Twice that night. He kept his peace about it. By the 3rd morning, her shoulder was healing clean. She had a blacksmith's body. It mended fast. The angry red was fading to pink. She found him in the yard splitting wood. He had left her sleeping. Or he thought he had. She walked up barefoot in his spare shirt, belted at the waist. The sleeves rolled past her elbows, forearms bare. The forged scars catching the light. She watched him swing the axe. She watched him miss the grain. He hit a knot wrong. The maul bounced. He grunted, You're going across it. What? The grain. You're hitting across it. Hit with it. He looked at her. You split wood? Mister, I shod horses for 10 years. I split wood. She walked over, held out her hand for the maul. He hesitated just a second, then he gave it to her. She set a round of oak on the block, stepped back, read the wood. Saw something he did not see. Lifted the maul. The swing was clean, the oak split. 1 stroke. Both halves falling away neat as cut paper. She handed the maul back with it. Not against it. Her face was almost unreadable. But there was something in her eyes that had not been there yesterday. The smallest light, the smallest grain of pride. You have any others? Plenty. Set them up. He did. She split wood for an hour. The whole pile. He stood and watched and held his peace. He could have stopped her. The shoulder. He did not. He understood. There were things that could only be healed by remembering you still had hands. When she was done, she sat on the chopping block, arms loose, breathing hard, sweat on her temples. My pa was a smith, I figured Bastrop. Little shop off the South Road. He died last tinner, lung fever. I sat with him 3 nights running. He listened. He owed money to a man come through with papers. I never saw the papers. Pa was in and out by then. Didn't know what he was signing. Man called it war taxes, federal, said so. Had a badge. Called himself a judge. What was his name? She looked at the woodpile. The morning sun on the cedars. Obadiah Thrace. The name fell into the yard like a stone into water. I don't know that name. You will. She wiped her face with the back of her arm. Day after we put Pa in the ground, he came back. Whisked him. Said the debt was mine now. Said I had 2 choices, pay or come, and you said, I said, come and get me. She gave him a thin, sharp smile, took 8 of them. I broke 2 noses with the hammer off the forge. I cracked one man's collarbone. They put a sack over my head in the end. I bit through somebody's hand on the way out. She paused. They put me in the pen. He set them all down. Sat on the other block. How long? 2 years. 50 women. Different ones came and went. They marked us. Numbered us. Her voice did not change. I was 47. How many got out? Just me. In the fire. She was quiet a while. There was a girl. 13. They marked her in front of me, so I'd know what waited if I made trouble. I made trouble anyway. His hands had gone tight on his knees. He made them loosen. This Thrace. He'll be look of you. He's looking. He sent men. I killed one yesterday. There'll be more. She looked at him. The blue eyes very steady. You can put me on the road, Wyatt. You don't owe me. I know, but you're not going to. No. Why? Because I spent 4 years killing men I didn't know for reasons I didn't understand. And I came home and I sat on this mountain trying to figure out what any of it was for. I ain't figured it out. But I figure it wasn't for letting a man like that keep doing what he's doing. He paused. And because you split that oak in 1 stroke. Which means you're a better partner in a fight than most men I served with. She stared at him, then she laughed. It surprised them both, a real laugh, short, rough, caught off guard. It died fast, but it had been a laugh. She wiped her eyes. Wyatt Holloway, yeah, I have not laughed in 2 years. Well, I'm out of practice with company. So that's about as funny as I get. She stood up. Her shoulder pulled at her. She let it. Show me the snare line tomorrow. All right. She went back into the cabin. He stood in the yard a long time after. He looked at the trail down toward Bandera, down toward the world, down toward the man named Obadiah Thrace and whatever was coming. He felt the shape of the next few weeks settling onto his shoulders. Heavy, familiar, the weight of a coat he had taken off 6 years ago and never expected to put on again. He picked it up. He put it on.
The 4th night, the wolves came. He did not hear them. He did not hear anything until the rifle went off in his own yard. He came out of sleep already moving, hand on the revolver, out of the bedroll by the hearth, across the room, door open. Cold air on his face. Reese was on the porch in her bare feet and his old shirt and nothing else, his sharps in her hands. Smoke curling from the muzzle, 20 yards out by the corral, a dark shape on the ground, not moving. 2 more shapes melting back into the cedars. Fast, wolves, 3 of them. After the mare, he stared. You shot one. Yes, with my rifle. You weren't using it. How long were you up? All night. He looked at her. All night. I sleep some. Then I come out. Then I sleep some more. Reese, I'm not used to being protected. I'm used to being the protection. She set the rifle against the porch post, walked past him into the cabin, stopped at the doorway, did not turn. My pa used to say there's 2 kinds of people. Ones who flinch when the door opens. Ones who go to the door, pause. He raised me to be the second kind. I don't know how to be the first. She went inside. He stood on the porch in his bare feet in the April cold. He looked at the wolf in his yard. He looked at the cedars. He looked at the door she had just gone through. Then we'll be the second kind together, he said. To no one, to the dark, to himself. He went inside and built the fire back up. She was already asleep. She slept the rest of the night through. For the first time since he had met her, she did not cry out once.
3 days later, they rode into Bandera for supplies. She wore his spare trousers and a shirt belted tight and her hair pinned up under his old slouch hat. With her shoulders and her height, she passed for a tall ranch hand at a glance. He had told her not to speak. She did not argue. Bandera sat quiet between the limestone hills. Wooden buildings along the dirt street, the general store, the saloon, the blacksmith shop, a handful of horses tied at the rail. They dismounted in front of the store.
Stay close, I will. Inside, Mrs. Henderson looked up from the counter, looked at Wyatt, looked at the tall stranger behind him, looked back at Wyatt with careful eyes. Mr. Holloway, been a while, ma'am. You bringing company down off that mountain finally. Just need iodine, bandages, flour, coffee, cartridges. She got them. While she was wrapping the iodine, Reese drifted to the bolts of cloth along the back wall. He watched her out of the corner of his eye. She stopped at a bolt of sky blue cotton with tiny white flowers. She touched it once. Light, light. With one finger she did not ask. He walked over. That one. Reese looked up at him sharp. Wyatt. 2 yards. Whatever's enough for what she's thinking. Wyatt? No, yes. Mrs. Henderson cut the cloth without comment. She had been the storekeeper in Bandera for 26 years. She had learned not to ask about most things. They were loading the supplies on the mare when the saloon door banged open across the street. A man staggered out into the sun. Tall, greasy, jaw still bruised yellow from some fight. He squinted across the street at them. His mouth opened slow. Well, I'll be damned. Wyatt's hand drifted toward his hip. The man pointed at Reese. That hair. I'd know that hair. Reese went very still. He took another step into the street. Smith's hands. Sweetheart, lift that skirt. Show us if it's still there. A horse stamped. Somewhere a door creaked open. A face appeared in the window of the barber shop. The street went quiet. Wyatt stepped between the drunk and Reese. You're drunk, maybe? The drunk grinned. But I heard about a runaway. Big girl, red hair, marked like cattle. Reward out of Austin. Judge Thrace pays good for what's his. The word reward drifted down the street like smoke. Faces appeared in more doorways. The smell of money in a small town. The slow tilt of a quiet street into something else. Show us the brand on your leg, sweetheart. Behind him, Reese flinched. Just once, he did not argue with the drunk. He did not reason with him. He drew the revolver and fired one shot into the air. The crack echoed off the limestone hills and came back twice. 3 horses spooked at the rail. The drunk staggered backward. A baby started crying somewhere up the street. The revolver came down level with the drunk's chest. His hand was steady. His voice when it came was low and slow and very clear. This woman is my wife. He let that sit. Anybody touches her. Anybody calls her property. Anybody so much as thinks about a reward, I will kill that man. I am not law. I am not soldier. I am a hunter. And I do not miss. The drunk's mouth moved. No sound came out. You hear me? I hear you. Say it back. You'll kill me. Good. Wyatt did not lower the revolver. Behind him he heard Reese mount up. The leather of the saddle creaked under her weight. Steady, Reese. Walk her around. She brought the mare alongside him. He swung up behind her. Holstered the revolver only after he was in the saddle. He looked once down the street. A rancher he half knew. Samuel Cross. Standing in the doorway of the feed store, watching. Arms crossed. Face unreadable. Wyatt nodded at him. Cross nodded back. Just that they rode out of Bandera at a walk. He would not give that street the gift of seeing him hurry. A mile up the trail, Reese spoke. Quiet, wife, easiest word. Wyatt, yeah, thank you. He did not answer. He did not need to.
Behind them in Bandera, the drunk picked himself up out of the dirt and stumbled back into the saloon. He had a story to tell. He told it loud. He told it for a beer and another and another. By the next afternoon, the story had ridden east. 2 days later, it reached a quiet ranch house outside Austin, where a man with silver hair and clean boots sat by a fire reading a ledger. He looked up when the messenger came in, and he listened. He did not interrupt. When the messenger was finished, Obadiah Thrace closed the ledger, set it carefully on the side table, folded his hands, and smiled, 47, to himself, to the fire, to the dark beyond the windows. Hello, 47, up in the Sabines. In a small cabin ringed by oak and limestone, a fire burned low in a stone hearth. A woman with auburn hair slept in a single bed for the second night in 2 years without crying out. A man sat in a chair by the door with a Sharp's rifle across his knees and a revolver on the table beside him. He did not sleep. He was not afraid. He was waiting, because he knew, because the wind through the cedars carried it. Because the birds had been wrong all afternoon. They were coming.
They came on the 3rd night, not the 1st, not the 2nd. The 3rd, Wyatt had been waiting all 3. He sat in the chair by the door each night with the Sharps across his knees and the revolver on the table and a tin cup of cold coffee that he never drank. He would doze for 10 minutes at a time. Wake, listen. Doze again. Reese slept in the bed. She slept hard now, real sleep. The kind a body falls into when it has decided, for the first time in 2 years, that the walls around it might hold.
He did not have the heart to tell her that the walls were thin pine. That walls had never stopped a man like Obadiah Thrace. The third night the wind shifted. He felt it before he heard it. The air in the cabin changed direction. Cold seeping under the door, the cedars outside going quiet in the wrong pattern. Birds that had been settling for the evening lifting back up without a sound. Something moving in the trees. Something on two legs. Something that knew how to move quiet. He set the tin cup down on the table without a sound. Picked up the sharps. Slid the breech open. Slid it closed, soft, like cotton. Then he reached behind him and put 2 fingers on his bare ankle where it stuck out from under the blanket. She came awake without moving. He had wondered if she could do that. Now he knew. He held up 2 fingers in the dim red light of the banked fire, then a third, 3 of them. Out there, coming. She nodded once, slid out of the bed without a creak. She had been sleeping in his shirt and his trousers cinched tight. She did not have to dress. She did not have to think. She moved straight to the corner where the pistol he had given her hung from a peg and lifted it down. The pistol disappeared in her big hand. She crossed to the back wall. Took the position they had drilled. For 2 days now Wyatt had walked her through it, where to stand, what to shoot at, when to move. He had not known exactly when. He had known. And here it was, the window on the east side of the cabin shattered. A torch came through, bright, hot, spinning. It hit the floor, rolled. The straw of the bedding caught at the edges. Reese kicked the torch across the floor toward the hearth, boot to torch, hard. The flames went into the stone fireplace and snuffed half out against the back wall. A boot kicked the front door. Once, twice. The third kick cracked the wood. Wyatt stood when the door burst inward. The man on the other side of it had a shotgun already coming up. Wyatt fired the sharps from the hip at 6 feet. The man's chest disappeared. There was nothing in the doorway except smoke and a body lying 20 feet back in the yard where the round had thrown it. Wyatt threw the sharps onto the bed, drew the revolver. A second man was in the window now, half through, 1 leg in. Reese fired from the back wall, 2 rounds, steady. The man went face down across the broken sill and slid backward into the dark. The third man was the smart one. The third man did not come in. The third man fired through the wall, wood splintered. Bullets punched in patterns. Wyatt dropped flat. He rolled. The wall above where he had been standing took 3 holes a heartbeat later. Reese, down, stay there. Yes, he crawled along the floor toward the front door. The body of the first man lay just inside. He rolled him, pulled the shotgun out from under him, checked the load. Both barrels. Outside the third man's circled. Wyatt could hear his boots in the gravel. Slow, patient. This one had done this before. So had Wyatt, who waited. The boots came past the door. He swung out low. The shotgun came up. The man was raising his pistol. Wyatt fired both barrels. The man went into the dirt.
Quiet. Then, the kind of quiet that comes after a thing has happened, and the world has not yet caught up to it. The fire popping in the hearth. The wounded breathing of the cabin itself. A horse shifting somewhere out in the brush. He did not move for a long time, listening. 3. He had counted 3. There could always be a 4th. Reese, here. Hurt? No. Stay there. Don't come out, Wyatt. Yeah, are you? I'm fine. He counted slowly to 30, then to 60. The knight did not move. He crawled back inside, stood in the wreck of the front room, reloaded the revolver, reloaded the sharps. Reese was crouched in the back corner, pistol up, eyes wide, and not panicked. The hand holding the pistol did not shake. 3, 2, dead, 1 wounded, maybe wounded. Need to check, I'll check. No, you stay, Wyatt, I'll check. He went out. The yard was full of a thin smoke. The body in front of the door, the body half out of the window. The third man passed the corner of the cabin, lying on his back with his hands open at his sides like a man who had decided to sleep in a strange place. He knelt by him, felt the throat, no pulse, 3 out of 3. He should have felt something. He did not. He went through the man's pockets, pocket watch, tobacco pouch, a folded bandana, a few coins, a small leather notebook the size of his palm, soft with use. He held the notebook. He did not open it yet. He went back inside. Reese was kneeling by the fireplace, breathing hard, not from fear, from the come down, the thing that happens to a body after a fight. He set the shotgun on the table, the revolver, the sharper's notebook. Then he sat across from her on the floor. For a long minute, neither of them spoke. The fire burned low. Outside, an owl called once, then went quiet. Wyatt, yeah, you did that fast. Yes, you did that like you've done it before. Yes, she looked at him. You were a sniper, Confederate. 2nd Texas. I was 19 when I started and 23 when I quit. How many, Reese? How many? I don't keep that number. You know it. Yes, I know it. Tell me. He did not want to. He told her 46. She closed her eyes. I'm number 47, I know. That is not lost on me, I know. She opened her eyes, you stopped. I came home in 65, and I came up to this mountain, and I have not fired on a man until tonight. How was tonight? He thought about it. Different. How? Tonight it wasn't a man I'd never met for a reason I didn't understand. She nodded. She looked at her own hand. The pistol's still in it. I shot a man tonight. Yes, I shot at a guard once. The night of the fire. I don't know if he died. Tonight is the first one I'm sure of. He kept his peace. I thought I would feel something. Sometimes you don't. Not the first night. Sometimes it comes later. You let it come when it comes. Is that what you do? That's what I did. She looked at him a long time. Did it come? Yeses. In about year 3, I cried like a child for half a winter. My neighbor Brennan sat with me through it. He didn't say a word. He just sat. Then he died of cholera the next spring. She reached over and touched his hand. Just once. The first time she had touched him on purpose since he had met her. Then she pulled her hand back and stood up. Bodies? Yes, I'll help. Oh, Reese, you don't? Don't make me sit alone in here with him out in the yard. Let me work. All right.
They worked. They dragged the 3 men out past the corral into the brush where a shallow draw cut down the slope. They did not bury them. Wyatt would burn the brush over them in the morning. Tonight there was no time and there was no kindness owed. When they came back to the cabin, Reese was breathing hard and her shoulder had bled through the bandage. Inside he set water to boil. He cleaned the shoulder again, retied it. She watched him work. Then he sat at the table and opened the leather notebook. He read for 10 seconds. He stopped breathing. He set the notebook down. Picked it up. Read the page again, Reese, he said, very quiet. Come here. She came. She sat in the chair next to him. What is it? He turned the notebook so she could see. It was a ledger, names on the left, numbers on the right, sometimes a price after that, sometimes a date, sometimes a town. Each entry written in the same neat, careful hand. The hand of a man who took pride in his record-keeping. 47, Reese Calder Bastrop, June 1869. There it was, her name, the number, the town, the date. She stared at the page. Her eyes found the next entries on their own. 48. Hattie Lowe, San Marcos, August 1869. 49, Margaret Eames Lockhart, October 1869. 50, Sally Pike, Bastrop, November 1869. Then 51, Lottie Calder Bastrop, February 1870. Age 9, Reese stopped breathing. Her hand came up. She put it flat over the page like she could cover it, like she could hide the words from her own eyes. No, Reese, no, Reese, that's wrong. That is wrong. Who is? He told me she was dead. Who told you, Thrace? He told me. He told me my pa's sister and her little girl died of the cholera in 69. He told me she made a sound. It was not a word. She put her face in her hands. He did not touch her. He did not move. After a minute, she lifted her head. Her eyes were not wet. Her eyes were dry and bright and burning. My cousin, my uncle's girl, pa's brother, he died in 64 at Mansfield. His wife died of fever before that. Lottie was a baby. Pa took her in. Then Pa got bad. Then she went to my aunt down past Bastrop. My aunt with the 4 girls. I left her there when Pa needed me at the forge. I left her, Reese. He told me she died. Yes, she didn't die. No, she is in there. She tapped the page. The number. The age. He looked at her face. He had seen in his life men make a decision that ended their old life and started a new one. He had made 1 or 2 himself. He had never seen a person make one this fast. Reese Calder had been a survivor 4 minutes ago. She was something else now. How old is she now? 10 or 11 by now. All right, what? All right, we go get her. She looked at him a long time. Wyatt, yeah, you don't owe her. No, you don't owe me. No, then why? Because there are 47 names in this book before yours. Because there is a child in this book. Because I have spent 6 years on this mountain trying to be done with the man I was. And I have just realized that the man I was might be exactly what is needed for this. He paused. Cause I will not be able to live with myself if I do not. She did not answer. She got up, walked across the room, stood at the broken window. Looked out at the dark yard where 3 men lay in the brush. Then she came back. Wyatt Holloway, yeah, you are not what I expected. I get that a lot. You don't, though. You don't see anybody to get anything from Fairpoint. Sit down. He was already sitting. He stayed. She sat across from him. She put her hand in the front of her shirt. She pulled out a small flat thing on a leather thong. She set it on the table. It was a metal star. tarnished, cheap. The kind of thing a man might buy at a saddle shop and call a badge if nobody looked too close. A judge's badge, or what someone wanted you to think was a judge's badge. What is that? It is the reason I'm still alive, Reese. The night they took me, I bit somebody's hand, I told you. He was the one with the badge. He hit me with it, across the face, backhand. It came off the cord and fell on the floor, and in the dark I picked it up. They had a sack on my head by then. They didn't see. You've had it 2 years. I knew it was a lie. I knew someday somebody would need to know it was a lie. She slid it across the table. He picked it up, turned it over in his big fingers. He had spent 4 years moving across countryside crawling, with men who claimed to be officers and judges and provosts and marshals. He had learned to read a badge fast. He had learned what real ones looked like. He had learned what fake ones looked like. He held this one to the lamp. The metal was wrong. Tin and pot brass. A real federal badge would be heavier. The number stamped on the back was wrong too. Federal judges did not get numbers. Federal judges got commissions, sealed paper. A badge was a courtesy item if they had one at all, and it had a name engraved, not a number. This had a number. This said 14. He set it down. This is a lie, I know. This is a man pretending to be a federal judge, to collect debts that aren't his, from women whose families can't fight back. Yes, Reese. The 13th Amendment ended this kind of bondage in 65. The Federal Anti-Peonage Act in 67 made it explicit what he is doing isn't just wrong, it's federal crime, trafficking, fraud, impersonating a United States officer. The federal court will hang him. The local sheriff might not care because Thrace is paying him, but a federal marshal in Austin will care. Federal court will care. She stared. You know all that. I was a soldier. I know what gets a man hanged. So if we get this to Austin, to a federal marshal or a federal judge, a real one, they will believe this. With your testimony, with the women, she put her hand on the badge, closed her fingers around it, big knuckles white. Then we get the women first, yes. Then we go to Austin, yes. Then we hang him, yes. All right, she stood up. She walked to the corner where they had stacked the supplies from Bandera, the small bundle of sky blue cotton with tiny white flowers. She picked it up. She set it on the table next to the badge. I am going to make this dress. Now, no after. After this is over, after Lottie is out, I will sew it then. I am telling you now, so I have to do it later. All right. You will not let me forget. No. Promise, I promise. She nodded. Then she walked into the bedroom and lay down on the bed in his clothes and went to sleep.
He sat at the table the rest of the night. He did not sleep. He read the ledger. He read every name, 51 names. He read them slow. He memorized them the way a man memorizes scripture, each name a face he did not know and a fate he could imagine. He memorized them so they would not be just numbers anymore. By the time the sun came up over the eastern ridge, he knew them all. He closed the book. He went to the chest at the foot of the bed. He moved aside the wool jacket, the color of dust. The flag, the bayonet, the 3 letters he had never opened. Underneath all of it, in a long oilcloth bundle, the Whitworth. He had not held it in 5.5 years. He lifted it out, the hexagonal barrel, the brass sight. The thin paper-wrapped powder cartridges in the small tin box beside it, a sniper's rifle, imported from England through the blockade. He had carried it across 2 states. He had killed men with it from distances where they had never seen him, where they had never heard the shot until they were on the ground. He had buried it under a chest in his bedroom for 6 years. He had told himself he was done with it. He had been wrong. Reese came out of the bedroom an hour after sunrise. She had washed her face in the basin. Her hair was tied back. She saw the rifle on the table. She held her peace. She poured herself coffee. She sat down, across from him. That's a long gun. It is how long? 1,200 yards on a good day. From where? From where you cannot see. She sipped the coffee. All right, that morning they began to plan. The Pen, Reese said, was an old failed cattle ranch about a day's ride east of San Marcos. A long, low main house, a barn, a pair of sheds, a high-board vents around all of it. 8 men, usually. Sometimes more when Thrace was in residence. Thrace was almost never in residence. There was a kitchen at the back of the main house. The women slept in the barn, 2 doors, one always locked. One bolted from the inside at night. There was a creek along the west edge of the property where the women sometimes did laundry under guard. There was a low ridge to the south, about 400 yards out. Wyatt looked at the rough map she scratched into the table with a pencil. He nodded slow. 400, about, that's nothing. That's a Sunday afternoon. There are 8 men I know. There are 8 men and they have rifles, and they will kill the women if they think they are losing. They will not know they are losing until it is over. She looked at him, Mr. Holloway. Yes, you are telling me from a ridge. 400 yards out, with that long gun, you will take the 8 men. Before they know, I will take 3 or 4 of them before they know. The rest will scatter. Men in fortified positions break very fast when they cannot see who is shooting them. And while you are doing that, you are coming in from the back. With my revolver and the ledger and the badge in your pocket, you go to the barn. You get them out, all of them, all of them. She set down the coffee cup, Wyatt. We are both going to die. Maybe is better than what those women have. Yes, she put her hand on the table flat. All right.
They left the cabin 2 mornings later. He loaded the bay mare and a second horse he had bought the day before from a neighbor down the valley, an old roan with a soft eye. Reese rode the roan, he rode the bay. The Whitworth went in a long scabbard on his saddle, wrapped in oilcloth, looking like a fishing pole to anyone who did not know. The revolver went on his hip, the sharps on the bay's saddle. Reese carried the pistol in her belt under his old coat. The ledger went into a pouch around her neck, the badge into her shirt pocket against her ribs. They rode east through the hill country. For 2 days they did not speak much. There was nothing to say. They camped cold each night. No fires. They ate jerky and hardtack. They watered the horses at small creeks. They watched the back trail. On the 3rd evening, Wyatt drew up the bay on a low rise. He pointed half a mile out, in the dying light, the roof of a long low house, a barn. A board fence. A faint thread of smoke, the pen. Reese looked at it. She did not move. For a full minute she looked. I dreamed about that fence 800 nights. It is smaller than I dreamed. They always are. She looked at him. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. That night they made camp on the south ridge. Far back, no fire. Wyatt took the Whitworth out of the oilcloth and laid it flat across his bedroll. Cleaned the bore with a rod, greased the seating cone. Laid out 12 paper cartridges in a row on a cloth. He did all of this by feel in the dark. Reese watched him. You are very calm. I am not calm. You look calm. I am scared. She blinked. Reese. I have been scared since the morning I found you at the creek. You don't act scared. I learned not to. She was quiet a while. Were you scared in the war? Every day. And you killed 46 men anyway. Yes. How? Because someone gave me an order. And because the man I was then did what he was told. And tonight nobody is giving me an order. Then who is making you do this? He looked at her in the dark. The man I am now. She did not answer. She lay down on her bedroll. After a while her breathing went slow. He did not sleep. He watched the slow turn of the stars. He thought about a girl named Lottie Calder. In a barn behind a board fence 420 yards from where he lay. Who did not know that this was the last night of her life as it had been.
The dawn came up gray. There was mist in the low places. The ridge held the cold. He set up at the lip of the rise where the cedars grew thick enough to hide a man and not thick enough to block his line of sight. He laid the Whitworth across a folded blanket on a rock. He laid out the cartridges, the percussion caps in their small tin. He counted the windage by the way the cedar fronds moved, east to west, 2 miles an hour, almost nothing. He could see the yard of the pen now in the gray light, 2 men by the kitchen door, smoking, cups in their hands. The barn with its wide door still closed and bolted. Another man on the porch sitting in a chair with a rifle across his knees. Half asleep. Useless. 3 so far. Reese was already gone. She had slipped down off the ridge in the last hour of dark, taking the long way around the back, coming up through the creek bottom. She would be in the brush at the back of the barn now. Waiting, he had told her. When the 3rd shot fires, you go. Not before. He waited for the kitchen door. A 4th man came out, yawning, suspenders down, a coffee pot in his hand. He poured cups for the 2 by the door, 3 of them clustered. He had not had this kind of luck in 6 years. He set the Whitworth into his shoulder, breathed out, breathed in. Halfway through the next exhale, his finger found the trigger. He squeezed, the Whitworth spoke, a flatter, harder crack than a Sharp's. The hexagonal bullet whined off the barrel and crossed 400 yards in less than a second. And the man with the coffee pot folded sideways into the wall of the kitchen. The other 2 stared. One fell next. The Whitworth had been reloaded before they understood what was happening. The 3rd dropped his cup, turned, ran for the kitchen door. He did not make it. The man on the porch was awake now, up, running. He did not know which way to run because he could not see where the shots had come from. He ran for the barn. That was a mistake. The fourth shot took him in the side and put him on the ground, 4 down, from the south ridge, 400 yards. Now they would scatter, now Reese would move. Behind the barn, in the wet brush, Reese Calder heard the third shot and was already moving. She came up out of the creek bottom, came up the slope to the back wall of the barn, came along the wall to the small back door. The small back door was bolted from the inside. She stood looking at it. Then she remembered she was a blacksmith's daughter. The back door of this barn had a rough iron hasp. A rough iron hasp was a thing she could break. She set her shoulder. Bad shoulder. She grit her teeth. She drove her body into the door. Once. Twice. The hasp groaned. Inside the barn, she heard a sound. A small sound. A child making a small, frightened sound. She drove her shoulder into the door a third time. The hasp tore out of the wood. The door swung in. She stepped into the dark of the barn. The smell hit her first. Old straw, sweat, fear. The same smell she had lived in for 2 years. The smell that had owned her. She stood very still. Then she said, loud enough to carry, soft enough not to startle, "My name is Reese Calder. I was number 47. I am here for you. We are leaving." In the dark, somebody started to cry. It was not Lottie. It was an older woman. A woman who had stopped expecting anything to ever happen for her. It was the sound of a person who had just heard, after a very long time, that the world remembered her name. Reese stepped further into the dark. "All of you. Up. Now. We have minutes." She heard them move. Out on the south ridge, Wyatt fired his 5th shot. A man came around the corner of the kitchen with a shotgun. He did not come around the corner of the kitchen anymore. 5. He saw, in the corner of his scope, men running, 2 from the bunkhouse, pulling on boots, carrying rifles. Confused, heads down, he fired again, missed. The man flinched and ran sideways, and Wyatt corrected, and the next shot took him. 6. The other one made it to the bunkhouse and slammed the door. White shifted his line of sight to the main house. Where, he thought, with a slow, cold feeling. Where is Thrace? Because the 8th man had not appeared. Because the man who owned all this was nowhere in the yard. He swept the scope across the windows, across the porch, across the open kitchen door where bodies were lying. Nothing. A horse cantered out from the barn area. Reese was in the saddle. So other women were running on foot beside her. 6, 7. A small figure in front of her saddle, holding to the saddle horn, long brown hair, thin shoulders, a child. Lottie. Reese had her. His chest did a thing it had not done in many years. It almost broke. Then he caught it, locked it down. He swung the scope back to the buildings. He counted again. 5 bodies in the yard. 1 in the bunkhouse alive and not coming out. He had killed 6 men in maybe 4 minutes. He had not seen Obadiah Thrace. He fired 1 more shot into the bunkhouse window, just to keep the 7th man inside. Then he packed the Whitworth in 8 seconds, slung it over his back, ran down the south ridge to where the bay mare was waiting. He came around the back of the pen at a hard gallop. Reese was already 100 yards out, riding for the cedars. 11 women on foot following her, Lottie clinging to the saddle. He fell in beside them. Where is he? He wasn't here. I went through the house. He hadn't slept in his bed. 2 days at least. He was tipped. Bandera. Then he knew we were coming. Yes, he looked over his shoulder. He did not need to look. He felt it down the road from the pen. Half a mile back, a line of horses, a line of riders, a long line, 16, maybe 17 of them. Coming hard from the west, in the front, on a tall gray horse, a man with silver hair under a clean black hat. And on the chests of 5 of those riders, the dawn light caught the metal, real badges. Heavier than the false one in Reese's pocket, county deputies. Deputies with paper. Deputies with a sheriff's warrant. Deputies who had been told they were riding to recover stolen goods under a debt bondage statute that had not been valid since 1865, but who had been paid enough not to care. He turned the bay sharp into the cedars, pulled Reese's roan with him by the bridle. 11 women on foot scrambled into the brush. He looked back once. Obadiah Thrace, on his tall gray horse, raised one hand. Across half a mile of cold morning air, Wyatt could not see his face. He did not need to. He could feel the smile. Reese, yes, it is not him we have to beat. It is the men with the real badges. I know. They are coming with paper. They are coming with the law on their side, I know. She pulled Lottie tighter against her chest. The child had not made a sound. The child was shaking inside her arms like a small caught bird. She looked at him. Her face did not break. It hardened. Then we ride for the mountain. Yes. Your mountain? Yes. You know it. They don't.
He turned the bay's head north, toward the Sabadines. Toward home, the hunt had started. They rode for a day and a half, 11 women on foot, 1 child on the saddle, 2 horses, 1 man who had not slept in 30 hours, 1 woman who could not stop looking back over her shoulder. The Sabines rose in front of them like a long blue wall. Behind them, the dust. The dust was the worst part. He could not see Thrace and his 17 riders, but he could see what they day-kicked up, a thin brown smear that hung in the morning sky and would not settle. It moved when they moved. It stopped when they stopped. The dust did not lie. The dust was 4 hours behind. Then 3, then 2.5. They were faster than Wyatt's group. Of course they were faster. 11 women had not walked more than the length of a barn in 2 years. 3 of them limped. 1 had no shoes. They moved as fast as they could. It was not fast enough. By the time they reached the foothills of the Sabines, the dust was a mile behind. He rode the bay along the back of the line. Rhys rode the roan at the front. Lottie still clung to the saddle horn in front of her cousin. The child had not spoken once. She had eaten what they put in her hand. She had drunk what they tipped to her mouth. She had not made a sound. Rhys had not stopped touching her, a hand on her shoulder, a hand on her back, a hand on her hair. Rhys touched her cousin every minute or 2 as they rode, like a woman checking that a candle had not gone out. He rode up alongside them once. He did not speak. Rhys looked at him. She is real. Yes. I keep thinking she is not. She is real. I left her, Wyatt. You did not know. I left her, and he had her for over a year before he put her number in a book. Rhys, I should have known. How? She did not answer. She looked down at the top of Lottie's head. Her hair was matted. Rhys's big hand smoothed it once. Slow. She does not know me. She will. How can you know that? Because she's letting you touch her. And she has not let anyone touch her in a long time, so somewhere in her she remembers. Rhys closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were wet. She did not let the wet fall. How long until they reach us? Tomorrow. Mid-morning. Then what? He looked at the wall of the Sabines rising in front of them. He looked at the canyon mouth he was riding for. He looked at the small dark slot in the limestone he had known for 6 years and never told anyone about. Then we get you and these women into a place I know, and then I do what I do. What do you do? I make the mountain expensive. She nodded. She did not ask any more questions.
The cave was halfway up the south face of the third ridge. He had found it the second winter. He had used it as a meat locker. He had used it as a place to sit when the cabin had felt too loud with his own thoughts. He had stocked it with 3 barrels of cornmeal, a sack of beans, salt, jerky, a tin of coffee, 2 oil lamps, and a pile of folded wool blankets that he rotated out twice a year. He had never told anyone the cave was there. He led them up the goat trail in single file. The horses balked at the steepest part. He hobbled them in a hidden draw with grass and water and led the women up on foot. Rhys carried Lottie. The child weighed nothing. The cave mouth was a slot you would walk past 100 times. It opened into a chamber the size of a parlor. Cool, dry, he lit the lamps. 11 women stood in his cave and looked at it like they did not understand what it was. You are safe here. Nobody comes up this trail who does not know it is here. There is food, there is water, there are blankets. The lamps burn for 30 hours each. There is a small hole in the roof for smoke if you want a cook fire. He looked at them. Stay here. Do not come out. If you hear shooting, do not come out. If you hear my voice calling for you, do not come out unless I say the word Sabine. Sabine, that is the word. If I do not say Sabine, it is not me. A woman with gray hair and one eye that had gone, Milky stepped forward. Mr. Yes, ma'am. You are not coming back, he thought about lying. He did not. Maybe not. She nodded. Then we will take care of her cousin. She tipped her head at Lottie. Lottie was sitting on a blanket against the wall. She had Rhys's hand in both of her small ones. Thank you. The woman with the milky eye reached out and took his hand, briefly, the way a grandmother might. Her hand was light and dry as paper. Mr. Holloway, yes. Make him expensive, yes, ma'am. He turned and went out of the cave. Rhys followed him. At the slot of the entrance she caught his arm. You said us. We make the mountain expensive. Us, me too, Rhys. You promised me you would not let me forget the dress. That is different. It is not different, Rhys. I am better alone, with the long gun. From a position, you are better with these women. They need you. That child needs you, Wyatt. What? I am not asking to be a sniper. I am asking to be on the mountain where I can see what is happening, so that if you fall, I can bring you up. He stopped. Rhys, promise me, I will not fall. Promise me,
I promise I will come back." "That is not a promise. That is a wish. It is the best I have." She let go of his arm. She stood very straight. "Then come back, Wyatt Holloway, or I will come find you. I know you will." She kissed him. It was very fast, on the side of the mouth. The first time she had touched him on purpose for love instead of fear. She turned and went back into the cave. He stood at the cave mouth a moment. Then he went down the goat trail with the Whitworth across his back, toward the canyon. Toward the men with the real badges. Toward the work he had spent 6 years trying to forget how to do. He did not forget.
Mid-morning, the second day, Obadiah Thrace's column came up the canyon road. They came careful. He would give them that. They had figured out, by the time they hit the foothills, that they were riding into something. Thrace had pulled them down to a walk. He had sent 2 outriders ahead. He had spread the rest into a loose line, 8 on each side of the canyon floor, where the cedars were thick, 16 plus Thrace. 17, 5 of them with real badges. 12 with rifles and bad intent. Wyatt lay flat on a ledge 200 feet above the canyon. The Whitworth was on a folded wool blanket. The cedar branches above him broke the line of his shape. He had 32 rounds of paper-wrapped powder and ball. He needed 17. He breathed out. He sighted on the first outrider. The man was on a sorrel. Maybe 30 years old, a real deputy badge on his chest. The badge was making the choice for him. The badge said this was lawful. The badge said the woman in the cave was a runaway under a debt bondage statute, and these men were performing their lawful duty. But the statute had died in 1865. Wyatt knew it. The deputy on the sorrel maybe knew it too, somewhere underneath the bribe Thrace had paid him. A real badge did not make a man right. A real badge just made a man harder to argue with. Wyatt did not want to argue. He fired. The Whitworth cracked. The deputy on the sorrel went sideways. The horse spooked. The rest of the column froze, just for a second. He was already reloading. A second outrider tried to spur his horse forward. He got 2 strides. The second shot took him out of the saddle. That was when the column understood. That was when they spread. They scattered into the cedars on both sides of the canyon. Thrace went off his tall gray and behind a boulder. 5 deputies and 10 of the others vanished into the brush. Smart. Slow them down. Make them work for it. He counted to 30. He shifted position. He moved 20 yards along the ledge to a second blind he had picked the night before. The Whitworth went over his shoulder. He moved like a man who had moved like this for 4 years a long time ago and had not forgotten. In the canyon, a man in the brush moved, just a knee. He fired. The knee went away. The man behind it screamed. 3, the men in the brush returned fire. They returned fire at where the smoke had been at his first shot. Where he was no longer, he waited. He moved, he fired again. By noon he had taken 5. They had figured out he was on the high ground. They had figured out they could not see him. Thrace had pulled them all back down the canyon 100 yards and put them behind cover. He let them. He drank from his canteen, ate a piece of jerky, waited. He moved to a 3rd position. By dusk he had taken a 6th. That night he did not sleep. He moved twice more. Once to a spot above the canyon's narrow place where he could see the small fires Thrace had been forced to allow because the night was cold. He counted fires. He counted men around the fires, 11 left, including Thrace. He had killed 6 in a day and they were still 11. He thought about the second night, the third. By the 3rd night, he might be the one running out of cartridges. By the 3rd night, Reese in the cave with 11 hungry women would also be running out. He thought about the Slot Canyon. The Slot Canyon was the last hard piece, a crack in the rock 1/2 mile north where the trail had to come through a narrow neck before it opened into the high meadow. There was no other way up the 3rd ridge. None. That was why he had picked this mountain. In the Slot Canyon, 6 years ago, he had done a thing. He had been a worse man then, a scared man, a man fresh off the war who was not yet sure the war had ended. A man who had been sure that someone would come up his mountain to drag him to a court-martial or to a gallows for whatever debt they pinned on him. A man he saw now who had been a little out of his right mind. He had been a little out of his right mind for almost 2 years after he came home. A neighbor of his had been a powder man, a miner, old man named Conway. Conway had liked Wyatt and had not asked questions. Wyatt had paid him in elk meat and silver, and Conway had set a charge in the Slot Canyon. A long fuse, capped powder kegs deep in a fissure on the western wall. Conway had rigged it so Wyatt could light it from 100 yards back behind a rock. Conway had said when he was done, "Son, I hope you never have a reason." Wyatt had said, "Me too." He had not had a reason. For 6 years, the fuse was still there. He had checked it once a year. He had replaced the cap powder in 68. He had walked away from the kegs each time and told himself, this is the last time. Next year I will pull these kegs out. Next year never came. He had needed it now.
The third morning, he led Thrace into the slot canyon. He did it on purpose. He fell back. He let himself be seen, just once. A flash of his hat, a piece of his coat through the cedars. Then he ran. He ran like a man who was tiring. He ran like a man who had a wounded leg. He did not have a wounded leg. Hunters love prey that limps. He led them down the trail towards the sauce. He let them see him 3 more times, each time a little weaker. Each time he reloaded the Whitworth and put 1 more of them in the dirt. 2 more. Now 9, including Thrace. He led them down into the slot canyon. He let them follow. He went through the slot ahead of them. He came out the other side. He kept going as if he were running for his life. He went 100 yards past the slot. He found the big rock he and Conway had picked 6 years ago. He went around behind it. The fuse was already laid, a long, thin black line in the dust. He pulled out his matches. He heard behind him Thrace's voice. Calling, Holloway. He froze. Holloway. I see you, Holloway. A bluff. He did not see him. He could not. The rock was too big and Wyatt was too low. But Thrace was clever. Thrace was talking to keep him still. Holloway. I have 8 men around this canyon. You will not get out of here alive. Surrender the ledger and the woman and the child and the others and walk down the mountain with me. I will see that you are tried fairly, Conway had said. Son, 1-6, maybe 7 seconds. Then she goes off mean. He struck the match on his boot, cupped the flame. Slow, he lit the fuse. The fuse hissed, he moved hard. Down the slope, behind the second boulder, behind the third, putting limestone between himself and the slot canyon. He counted in his head. 1, 2, 3. In the slot canyon, 8 men were riding through, following his trail. 4, 5, 6. He threw himself flat behind the third boulder, hands over his head. 7. The mountain split open. That was what it sounded like. Not an explosion. A split. As if the rock itself was a thing with a heart, and the heart had stopped, then the noise. A whump that he felt in his stomach, more than heard with his ears. And after the whump, a sound like a long, slow sigh, and then a sound like 1,000 stones falling all at once. Because that is what was happening. The western wall of the slot canyon came down, in slabs the size of wagons, in pieces the size of houses. In a brown roiling cloud that filled the slot from end to end, and rose up out of the top in a column that he could see through his fingers from where he lay. For a long time he did not get up. When he stood, his ears were ringing. When he climbed up onto the boulder, the slot canyon was gone. It was filled, 20 feet deep, 30. The cedars on the eastern wall stuck out of the new pile like brown bones. He did not know how many he had taken with the rock. He guessed 7. He guessed wrong about which 7, because as the dust began to thin, he saw on the near side of the rock fall, hat off, coat torn, silver hair gray now with dust, holding a long-barreled pistol in his left hand, bleeding from his right ear. Obadiah Thrace, and just behind him, half stumbling, coughing, holding a rifle, 1 deputy. The deputy with the real badge. Thrace looked up, across 150 feet of broken stone and settling air. Thrace saw him. Thrace smiled. That smile was the worst thing he had seen on his mountain in 6 years.
He brought the Whitworth up. He sighted. The deputy was raising the rifle. The deputy was raising the rifle at him. Wyatt fired first. The rifle and the deputy fell into the dust. Thrace did not move. Thrace just kept smiling. He loaded. He sighted on Thrace. Thrace stood in the open. Pistol at his side. Did not raise it. Did not run. He shouted across the rocks, 46, 46 was your number, was it not? In the war? Wyatt did not answer, I asked. I asked in 3 towns before I came. You were a sniper. Did you sleep well after the 46th? Wyatt did not answer. 47. Holloway, 47. That was the number of the woman in your cabin. Did the universe not give you a little laugh? Do you think I did not know that when I picked her? I pick all of mine. I pick numbers. I am very, very particular. His finger eased onto the trigger. He thought for 1 second about firing. He could end Thrace from here. Easily, but he did not, because something in him said no, this is not yours, not entirely, not anymore. He took his finger off the trigger. He stood up behind the rock, tall, slow, visible. He set the Whitworth down on the boulder. He drew the revolver. He started walking. He walked across the broken stone, across the 100 feet of new rubble between himself and Obadiah Thrace. Each step planted careful in the loose rock. Thrace lifted the pistol. Wyatt did not break stride. Mister, if you had any spine, you would have shot me by now. Thrace's smile slipped. His hand was shaking. Wyatt could see it now. The man in the silver hair and the dusty black coat and the spotless boots had been smiling, because the smile was the only thing he had left. Thrace fired. He missed. Wide. A panic shot. Wyatt did not fire. He kept walking. Thrace fired again. He missed. The third shot grazed Wyatt's arm and burned a line of red across his sleeve. He did not fire. He kept walking 20 feet. 5. Thrace's hand was empty. He had spent his cylinder. He had spent it because he was a man who had spent the last 20 years making his money by frightening people who could not fight back. And when for the first time a person walked toward him and did not flinch, his hands had not known what to do. Wyatt stopped 4 feet from him. This is the man who burned a word into a girl's leg. This is the man who put a number on a child. This is the man who has the weight of 51 names on him, and probably more he never wrote down. He raised the revolver, he thumbed the hammer, he looked at Obadiah Thrace. Then he lowered the revolver an inch. You do not get to die here. You do not get to die in a canyon on a mountain. You do not get to die where I can bury you and forget you. You do not get to die quiet. He put a hand on Thrace's shoulder. Walk, what walk? That direction. Down the canyon. To the road. To Bandera, Holloway walk. You are taking me in, I am taking you in. Thrace stared, for a second. Then he laughed. The wet, broken laugh of a man whose ledger had just been called. Holloway, you are a sentimental fool. They will not hang me. They will believe me. I have a badge. You a piece of tin from a saddle shop. The woman has the real one in her pocket. The numbered one. The medal is wrong. The federal court will hang you for impersonating an officer of the United States, and they will hang you for trafficking, and they will hang you for fraud. Thrace stopped laughing. I have men in Austin. You had men in Austin. This canyon is full of them now. He pitched him. Hard. Thrace stumbled. Walk. He walked. Wyatt walked behind him.
6.5 hours later, they came down out of the foothills and onto the road at the edge of Bandera. Thrace was limping. His coat was gone. His hands were tied with cord. Wyatt's arm bled steadily but not badly. By the time they reached the main street of Bandera, the sun was setting. Samuel Cross saw them first. He came out of the feed store and stopped in the middle of the street. He looked at Wyatt. He looked at the silver-haired man tied with cord. He held his peace. He turned around. He went into the feed store. He came out with 3 other ranchers. The 4 of them walked Wyatt and his prisoner down the street in silence. The sheriff of Bandera County was a man named Avery who had been in the job 4 months. He was not the sheriff who had sold himself to Thrace. That sheriff had been in Mason County. Avery was new and Avery was clean. He looked up from his desk when Wyatt came through the door. Mr. Holloway, sheriff. Who is that? Obadiah Thrace. Wanted in Austin for fraud, trafficking, and impersonating a federal judge. The evidence is in a leather book in my coat pocket. The proof of the impersonation is a counterfeit badge in the possession of one of his victims, currently safe, Holloway. Yes, this is going to take some sorting. Yes, it is. Sit down. Both of you, they sat. A very wired Austin within the hour. By dawn, 3 federal marshals were on the road. They rode hard. They reached Bandera in 2 days. They took Obadiah Thrace. They took the ledger. They took the badge. Wyatt rode back up his mountain. Reese was waiting at the cave mouth when she heard him give the word. Sabine. She came out of the dark with Lottie in her arms. She did not run to him. She walked. She set Lottie down. The child stood, swaying. Blinking in the daylight she had not seen in over a year, the woman with the milky eye stepped up behind her and put a hand gently on her shoulder. Reese walked to Wyatt. She did not speak. She put her arms around him. He held her behind them. 11 women came slowly out of the cave, into the afternoon sun, into a world that had, for the first time in a long time, made room for them.
The federal court at Austin convened in special session 4 months later. Wyatt did not go. Reese did not go. The 11 women, with the help of Samuel Cross and his wife, and a quiet network of ranch families through 3 counties, did go. They went with the woman with the milky eye at their head, and they spoke under oath, and they spoke for the dead and for the disappeared, and the Galveston News printed every word. Obadiah Thrace was hanged on a clear day in October of 1871. He did not say last words. He did not need to. His ledger had said them all.
Late spring of 1872. The cabin in the Sabine smelled like stew. It also smelled like wet wool because there was washing on the line. And it smelled like a small fire of cedar because the morning had been cold. And it smelled faintly like sky blue cotton with tiny white flowers, because the dress had been finished a month ago, and Reese had put it on this morning, and was wearing it now. She was at the table. She was teaching Lottie how to braid bread dough. Lottie was 11. She had started talking again at the end of the summer. Not all at once, a word a day, then a sentence a week, then one morning, a whole burst of them, all at once, like a creek finally breaking through ice. Mostly she talked to Reese, sometimes to Wyatt, once memorably to one of the chickens who had not deserved the lecture.
Wyatt was in the yard splitting wood. He swung them all wrong on purpose. Reese came to the doorway, stood there, watched. You're going across it. I know. Wyatt Holloway. Yes, ma'am. Are you doing that on purpose? Yes, ma'am. Why? Because I like it when you come fix it. She crossed the yard. She took them all from his hand. She kissed him on the cheek. Quick. Light. Then she split 4 rounds of oak in 4 strokes. The dress was the color of a Texas spring sky. Her hair caught the morning sun. Her eyes were blue. She was not afraid.
He watched her. He thought about the morning at the creek, about the woman crumpled against the cottonwood, about the word burned into her leg, about the night the wolves came, about the slot canyon, about the cave with 11 women and a child who would not speak, about 46 names that he had carried for 6 years, about 47 names he carried now. She had been number 47 in a leather book. She had a name now. The brand on her thigh was still there. It would always be there, but it was not what she was. She was a woman in a sky-blue dress, in a yard on a mountain, with a small girl behind her in the doorway on a spring morning in 1872.
Reese set them all down, put her hand on his arm. Wyatt, yes, tomorrow Lottie rides the road by herself for the first time. You walk beside her the whole time. All right, and then you put another log on the fire, because there will be stew. All right, and then we go on the way we have been going. For a long time, she closed her eyes. He held her there.
The sun climbed. The cedars whispered. Smoke curled from the chimney. Somewhere down the slope, the bay mare nickered to the old roan in the corral. The mountain did not give back what it kept, and what it kept this morning was a man and a woman and a child, and a cabin, and a fire, and a dress the color of sky, a life chosen free the end.